Dwane, Mike Ganter here from the Toronto Sun. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Wondering about, if you got into this playoffs, you're 2 games into this playoff series without Fred, and based on what he meant to the team in the regular season, how fortunate do you feel that Dwane's been able to just pick up the slack and kind of go?
I'm very fortunate, Michael, in the fact that I think Dwane has really played very well. He had a huge block last night on John Wall. He had a kind of a critical point of the game. The game was changing a little bit. He's shooting the ball with a lot of confidence. So it's been but Dwane's been doing that all year, and they kind of been a tag team tandem in the fact that, there's times when Fred will take over the game, and then there's times when Dwane will take over some games in those situations. So now he's out there alone and carrying the load himself. So very fortunate, and we still can do even a better job on Beal and Wall.
How about just those fourth quarter minutes for Dwane, though? I thought that was where you'd miss Fred the most, right. and it's turned out like you really haven't.
Well, there's been a time, I can't remember the exact game, Michael, that we have used Dwane in the fourth quarter, and he's produced for us. I have to go back and look at the game log and find out exactly when, but there was a time when, it was either Fred or Dwane, Dwane or Fred in the fourth quarter with Kyle and DeMar. So, he's very, mature. He doesn't get rattled. If he makes a mistake, it's an honest mistake. It's not because of the moment. So we're very fortunate to have 2 young guys that we feel comfortable with having there in the fourth quarter in critical situations.
All right. Thanks, Dwane.
Thank you, Michael.
Next question.
Dwane, it's Carl from the Globe.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So often in these situations over the last 4 or 5 years when you've been in the playoffs, you've been slugging as the underdog, always going down in the first game, never being up 2-0. And that's a role you seem to enjoy. Where do you think of yourself now that you're obviously the favorite? Are you comfortable in that role?
Very comfortable. Again, that's the kind of the growth process of our program, Cahal. And a few years ago, we had to have that mentality and that chip on our shoulder mentality, or else. So we're growing. I think our guys are developing a mental toughness that you have to be the favorite. And again, there's going to be situations. Still, again, I don't know who's going to have a favorite. So. But again, I think our guys are very comfortable in that role. I'm comfortable in that role as far as, having the mental toughness to be the favorite. And again, it's not so much how I feel, it's how our players feel. And I think they've grown into that mentality. And I think it coincides with the growth and establishing ourselves as the top seed of the conference.
Does your messaging have to change to them? Like, do you find that when you're talking to them, it comes off a little different now because now you're telling them to put their foot on someone's throat?
Well, no, it's gradually has changed all over the year. As far as who we are and that type of thing. I think there was a little time there that we were talking about, I think it was in the middle of the season, where we were talking about our goal is to be the number 1 team, and we were not there yet. So at that time, we were still, scratching and clawing to get to the top. So there was a period that I don't know exactly when it was. I know I was talking to the team. I think we were in Atlanta, talking about our goal is to be the number 1 seed by, All-Star break or right after All-Star break, and we accomplished that. And I think that's when the messaging changed somewhat. And again, it's not, I don't know how many games we're going to walk in as if you're watching the Las Vegas Lions, and I'm not a better, but not a lot of people are going to favor us every game. So we have to change that messaging every once in a while to get ourselves to understand how people feel about us.
Thanks, Dwane.
Okay, call.
Next question.
Hey, Dwane, it's Eric.
With the post.
Go ahead, Eric. Thank you. Go ahead, Eric.
Sorry. It's Eric from The Athletic. How you doing?
Hey,
What have you seen so far from CJ, not just as a shot maker, but a guy creating space out there just by being there? And as a second part to that question, how good of a job do you think his teammates have done at recognizing when the Wizards have sort of doubled down on those actions to set him up and find other options? Thanks.
Now, can you explain the second part of that question a little bit more?
Yeah, like when he comes around a screen and they perhaps overhelp on him, the screener and his man help on him, and somebody rolls to the rim, like Hurdle did in the first game, for example, for the alley-oop.
I understand what you. No, he's been great, and if they're going to commit two to him, it's just like committing two to Cal and DeMar on the pick and roll, and he's done a good job of finding the open man on the roll, and sometimes we, set up a play for that exactly. And I know we did in game one, set them up. We saw what they were doing and drew up a play to take advantage of that. And so, but CJ has served that purpose. There's areas now that DeMar is getting into where there's so much respect for CJ, and rightfully so, that he's creating space by just his spacing, and so and that's very important for us and for Cal and DeMar. So he's given us exactly what we need, and again, if he's getting two people committed to him in a half court setting, that helps us.
Thanks, Dwane.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Scott, were you next?
Yeah, it is. Hey, Dwane, it's Scott.
Hey, Scott. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. With DeMar specifically, do you remember a point this season, or maybe it was even the off season, where you realized that it was all sort of clicking for him, that he was comfortable in this style of offense? I'll hang up and listen.
That's a good. I know Cal and DeMar and I had a powwow in Utah. And again, at that time it was early in the season, and just they hadn't got a feel for it yet. They hadn't got a real understanding of when they were going to get their shots, when they were going to get their touches, so to speak, and how they could help the team win on the offensive end. And so we talked about it, and I implored them to let's give it a chance, let's continue to buy in and their leadership, their belief in it, not just go through the motion, but believe in what we're trying to do will help the rest of the team. And they did. Their leadership and their buy-in was huge in the fact of allowing us to change basically an offensive system that was, statistically successful last year. And so that was something that was huge for those two guys. And I think it was around the Utah game is when it, and I don't know if the offense clicked after that or DeMar clicked after that, but soon after that, I don't think it did, because I know we came back from that trip, Scott, and got beat by Washington here at home. But I think the wheels were in motion around that time.
Right, and then you see like last night where he starts off passing and then he's taking threes. It just seemed like, wow, this is a whole different guy than we were used to seeing in past playoffs.
No question, Scott. And again, he understands the criticism of, being an ISO player, so to speak, and which I think is totally unfair, because he's probably one of the best mid-range shooters in, his numbers in the history of the game. So, and again, he was, I think early in the season, was trying to mix in his mid-range game along with the three-point shot, and didn't really. And I think now he has a better rhythm of when to pull up for the threes and when to attack the rim, and and that type of thing. And that just came from, getting a better feel for what we were trying to do. I think he had long twos last night, and if he could just step back another few inches, then, and he'd get those threes. So it's not a finished product with him. Again, my hat is off to him, because to ask him to change his mindset offensively is tough. And you take any star player in this league and tell them to change their style of play to fit the team, that is a commendable thing for him, and it's not easy to do.
All right, thanks, Dwane.
Thank you, buddy.
Dave from Sportsnet.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Thanks. Another big night from DeMar, and it's been such an impressive season from him. Obviously, he's so important to the team's success. And we know he's been going through some hardships away from the court, and traveling back and forth on the off days to visit his dad and whatnot. I just wanted to get a sense from you, Dwane, of what it's been like being around him day to day this season, knowing how much he's kind of balancing between his personal and professional life.
I love him. I mean, to me, he's like a son as far as just watching him grow up in the last 7 years, from a snotty-nosed kid from Compton to the man he is now, and taking on the family responsibility he's taken on and still playing. And, my hat is off to him, Dave, from that standpoint, because he's got a lot on his plate right now, and probably more than you and I or any of us will ever know, and he lets out. And but from a coaching standpoint and organization standpoint, he has our support and freedom to go back and forth whenever he can to see his dad. His dad sent a beautiful message video we showed to the team that was it brought tears to my eyes anyway, to let the team know that he was pulling for the team, and he did that from his hospital bed. So DeMar is he's doing a great job for what he's going through in his personal life.
Thanks, Dwane.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Who's up next?
Dwane, Dan Roth from Canadian Press. The first two games, your club has come out and taken leads after the first quarter and into halftime. How much of an advantage is that in terms of scheming, and then when you get set to go into the second half, knowing that you've got a cushion?
Well, again, it's a two-edged sword, Dan, in the fact that, even though we had a big lead last night, I've seen it so many times, especially with the three-point emphasis that everybody has this year. There's no lead that's safe in this league, and probably the bigger lead, the more dangerous it is. And it kind of goes back to the Cahal's question. And, we've been the underdog all year, and there's no way you can allow yourself to relax and say, okay, we got this in the bag. So it's good in the fact that our guys come out guns a-blazing, and we emphasize that. I emphasized that before the game to make sure, don't wait to the fourth quarter to have that defensive intensity. Don't wait to really attack offensively. And we had that mentality last night. But at the same time, in the NBA, there's a run coming. There's something coming around the corner. So that was the message at halftime, and it's coming, and that's the mentality, the mental toughness you got to have coming out of the locker room to keep off a run that most NBA teams in this league are going to make, especially with the emphasis on the three-point shot.
Gotcha. And if I may follow, please, now you go on the road, but this year your team has been very good on the road. What do you do differently on the road that you would normally do at the ACC?
Well, again, it's going to be a hostile environment. I don't know, this is, we went, last year Milwaukee was a hostile environment, and we, didn't play well the first game, but the second game we handled it pretty well. And so that's the mentality we got to go into and understand that it's us against them. And, we going into Washington, them down 0-2, they're going to be, playing in a desperate mode. We've got to continue to be hungry. We got to continue to go in with a fighter's mentality to start the game as we did at home. And, don't change that Dan, and try to say that, hey, we're going to come in here and it's going to be a cakewalk. No, it's going to be probably even tougher than Game 1 to get over that Game 1 jinx that we had there for a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Who's up next?
Dwane, it's Michael Grange.
Hey, Michael.
From Sportsnet. How are you?
Doing good, doing good.
Just you mentioned that anecdote regarding DeMar. How much is the rest of the team kind of sort of taking note of him and what he's dealing with, and the sort of the example as a leader he might be setting for some of your guys?
Well, huge, Mike. They understand the personal side of what he's going through, with his dad, and not only his dad is just taking over being the matriarch of that family, and making sure that his dad is well taken care of. He's getting the care that he needs back in LA. So, but all the players understand it. They know it. They respect it. I respect it and appreciate him fighting through it. And again, there is life other than basketball, and there's real life stuff. And so other players recognize, and hopefully they're taking notes and say, hey, look, even though we all have personal stuff going on away from basketball, we still have a job to do, and he's doing his job here, at least for 2 hours a day, 2.5 hours a day, with his basketball job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Hey, Dwane, Dave Fezchuk from the Toronto Star.
Hey, Dave.
Looking back at JV's season, I remember back in November when you guys had that little lull in New York and Indy. He was quite upset about his role or lack thereof after one of those games. I mean, can you talk about the journey he's taken from there to where he is now, and what's been the key components?
And that's a good question. I was just watching film with Jonas and talking to him about there's certain small lineups that it's almost impossible. It's very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, Dave, but it's very difficult for him to guard unless he's just dominating on the other end. And there are some small lineups that he can match up with, and he does an excellent job of being out there and covering. And there's a certain lineup that we don't mind with Washington to keep him out there on the floor. So, that's the situation he's in, the kind of his lot in life right now. And he's getting better, Dave. He's much better now than he was early in the year of guarding some of the smaller five. Some of the teams putting their fours at the 5 position, spreading the floor on us. And there's some that is very difficult for him. But JV is beginning to handle it much better mentally than he did earlier, because sometimes he can't understand why that he's not out there, and he's such a competitor and wants to help the team win. So those are the situations that his next step in his growth process, Dave, is to be able to stay out there and move his feet, be able to switch onto a guy like John Wall, to be able to switch onto a guy like Bradley Beal and keep him in front and make him score with his size. And there's certain matchups he can do that with, and there's certain that's asking a lot of him to be able to do that.
Thanks. Any final questions? Okay, guys, I think we'll wrap up then. Thank you very much for this, and we'll see you all for practice tomorrow at 11.